PS slots, and so very soon there will be a shakeup in the 52 principal secretaries that was sworn in less than 2 years ago, and Raila wants at least 20 slots. We'll be dissecting that, even as on matters economy. Remember, the Gen Zs began this revolution by the rejection of the Finance Bill 2024, which they oppose increase in taxes. But guess what? The outgoing National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, that is Professor Odinga, has told the head of state that high taxation is not working, and it's time that they resolved to use other means. And so this appears actually to be sentiments that are throwing weight behind what the Gen Zs have been demanding, and it takes a different stance with that of President William Ruto, where he believed taxing would help solve the debt. But according to Odinga, taxing or high tax levels for debt repayment will not work for this country. In fact, right now we're about 14 to 16% taxation or revenue collection to the GDP, and President William Ruto had hinted that it should stand at around 22%, and that's why with Finance Bill 2024 it would have shot up to about 18%. But at the same time, remember, Kenyans opposed the road maintenance levy from 17 Kenya shillings to 25 Kenya shillings. That is an increase by 7 Kenya shillings per litre of fuel. But now Kenya is moving to actually put in place toll centers on major roads, including Thika Road, where you'll have to pay similar to the way you pay for the, expressway, and that is already eliciting reactions from the country. But all in all, we ask, was the youthful Kenyans' pressure on government a passing cloud? In studio, I'll be joined by very key guests. That is Honorable Marian Kitani. She is the Member of Parliament Aldai. Also, a political analyst, Kennedy Ondiek, will be right here in studio, and a revolutionary artist, that is Samuel Makori. Start this conversation via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Chacha, as well on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. Of course, I'll be sampling some of your feedback after or in the course of this program this morning. We'll be touching what is on our dailies later on the program with my guests who will have already arrived. But remember, you can join in this conversation and I'll be sampling. The question is, what next for Gen Z? Was this a passing cloud? But first of all, let's focus on these stories where ODM leader Raila Odinga has once again revealed the discussion behind the scenes that led to the formation of the broad-based government. Speaking while attending the burial of Mzee Chirchir Masit, that is a father to the former IEBC Commissioner Irene Masit, Odinga said former President Uhuru Kenyatta is the one that initiated the discussion at the height of the Gen Z revolution. And as a political affairs reporter, Brian Amwai now tells us, Odinga maintains that there was no handshake between him and President William Ruto, despite some of his lieutenants serving in government.
As the broad-based government continues to take shape following the swearing-in of new CSs, the details of how that came about continues to come to life. Raila Odinga seemingly played a key role that led to the current state of affairs that has seen some of the ODM strong men and women be part of the Ruto-led administration. The latest revelation comes on the heels of Raila's statement that Ruto begged him to help him, opening the lead on the crisis that was and the forces that came together to piece together a nation that was seemingly falling apart. Odinga revealed that former President Uhuru Kenyatta was at the center of the discussions behind the scenes.
Sasa ile nchi inachomeka, Uhuru ndiye alinipiga mimi simu. Uhuru akaniambia mimi tafuta Bwana Ruto, ongea na yeye. Kenya ikichomeka hatakuwa na nchi nyingine. Mpaka hii tuzime hii moto, watu waketi chini waendelee waliwane. William ndiye akanitafuta. Na mimi nikaongea na yeye wazi kabisa. Mimi unajua mambo yangu, mimi sifichagi mambo.
As Odinga's hand seems to have painted itself all over the Ruto cabinet, the opposition chief still maintains that his hand did not shake that of the president and that all he did was donate some of his good men to help propel the nation forward.
Magazeti haya wanaandika sijui nini Raila na Ruto handshake, hakuna handshake. Hakuna handshake. Wakati huu naona mimi sijaingia kwa serikali. Hatuko kubaliana na Ruto atituwe na serikali mseto. Hatuna mseto. We don't have a coalition government.
The purge, however, continues as the rot in the Ruto-led administration seems to be deeper than just 22 cabinet secretaries. Odinga now says next in line of clearance are the principal secretaries, with details emerging that close to 20 will lose their job, with Odinga having proposed a number.
Akasikia, mimi hii cabinet nitatoa. Nitawapeleka nyumbani. Nikasema hata hao makatibu ambao wako pale, wako chafu yote. Usafishe wote ili tukiwe na mwanzo mpya. Lakini mzuri zaidi watu wawe na ile mkongamano ambayo tulikuwa nayo huko mbele. Kuna mambo mengi ambayo hayakusuluhishwa.
The move has been welcomed by the political class.
Lakini mliona juzi, unajua watu wengi wanafikiria ati hii serikali ni ya muungano. Hii serikali ilifika mahali mzee huyu akasema nchi yetu ni kubwa kuliko sisi wote. Na wakati alisema hivyo pia akakutana na ndugu yake William, ni mtu muungwana. Akasema pia yeye apende ukabila. Hakuenda kuongea na Raila wakaandika agreement ya kuunganisha serikali. Lakini kulingana na wisdom yake pia William Ruto anajua watu wa ODM. Anajua fulani na akaomba mzee wacha tupanue serikali, wacha bado nipeane fiketi kwa sababu ili tuunganisha watu wote.
Mzee Chirchir Masit was eulogized as a man who believed in the growth of others and held his community together. The absence of his daughter Irene Masit, who is now in exile following the 2022 elections, becoming a subject of conversation at the funeral, with leaders calling on the opposition chief to intervene. Brian Amoai, K24.
Meanwhile, President William Ruto has urged leaders from various political affiliations to support the ongoing efforts to unite Kenyans for the sake of the unity and transformation. The president in the second day of Kisii tour, that is on Tuesday, has to this end appealed to leaders who do not support the broad-based government to do so in the spirit of patriotism.
Speaking during his second day of a three-day development tour of Kisii and Nyamira counties, President Ruto said tribal and sectoral politics was outdated.
Imefika wakati ambapo umoja wa nchi, maendeleo ya nchi ni muhimu kuliko mirengo, kuliko vyama, kuliko makabila, kuliko masehemu. Mimi nawauliza ndugu zangu watu wa Nyamira na watu wa Kisii, munakubali tuungane ama munataka tutengane?
He said that the unity and transformation of the country are more important than the selfish personal and political interests of leaders.
In the life of a nation, there comes a time when the greater interests of the nation, when the progress, prosperity, transformation of the nation is greater than the sectarian interest of parties and formations. It is greater than the interest, personal interest of leaders. And that is why I commend the leaders who have agreed out of patriotism for us to work together.
Sentiments that were echoed by his deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, who said he fully supported the recently appointed cabinet secretaries, including those from ODM.
Hata sisi tumekubaliana na rais. Tushirikishe wa Kenya wote, Kenya ni moja, si ndio? Wale wamekuja walikuwa ODM ni mawaziri, tutawasupport, tutaunga mkono. Hii Kenya ni yetu sisi zote.
Kisii Governor Simbarati on his part commended the president for bringing Kenyans together, noting that had the country disintegrated during the recent chaos, ordinary Kenyans would have suffered the most.
Serikali ambayo tumetengeneza hapa, tuhakikishe kwamba tumeenda mbele, tutengeneze nchi yetu. Kama nchi yetu ingeanguka, hakuna yule ambaye angekuwa na amani. Hakuna hata mmoja. Rais hapo ako na uwezo, ataingia ndege aruke. Mimi niko na uwezo na mimi nitaweza toroka, lakini hao wananchi wa kawaida watakuwa wanauana.
During his tour, Ruto broke ground for the construction of the 3 billion Kisii County Cancer Treatment Center and commissioned the outpatient surgical and mother and child units at Keroka Level 4 Hospital in Nyamira County, among other projects in the region. Busara Naman, K24 TV.
Away from matters politics, the Kenya National Highway Authority, KENHA, is considering introducing tolls on 6 major highways across the country that will see Kenyans pay to use the proposed designated roads. As Bentura Komboka reports, the tolling policy, which is currently under review, will be rolled out after Kenyans submit their views through the public participation.
Kenyans could soon pay to use some of the major roads across the country following the government's proposal on introducing a tolling policy. Through a statement to the newsrooms, the Kenya National Highways Authority, KENHA, the policy, which is currently under discussion, will be guiding the authority on the tolling model that is set to indicate the amount paid to commensurate distance covered. According to KENHA, key roads being considered for tolling includes major highways such as the Thika Superhighway, Nairobi Southern Bypass, Nairobi Nakuru Summit Highway, Kenol Sagana Marua Road, Mombasa Southern Bypass, and Dongokundu Bypass. The authority has, however, assured an extensive public participation will be conducted through the process before rollout. Currently, the 27-kilometer Nairobi Expressway is the only road in Kenya that is being tolled, with motorists required to pay between 120 shillings and 490 shillings. The government had also intimated on plans to toll the yet-to-be-constructed 440 kilometers Nairobi-Mombasa Expressway that has thus far received a funding of 477 billion shillings from the U.S. government. Bentura Komboka, K24, Nairobi.
We shift gears now to matters of the economy. After being shown the door following the dissolution of the cabinet by the president, outgoing Treasury Chief Professor Njuguna Ndung'u has pointed fingers to where the smelly potato lies in Ruto's government, citing resistance actually to change, ghost workers, untenable debt repayment, and why Kenya ought to rethink the current education funding model. Here now is David Kagina with our story.
In the handover notes to the incoming Treasury Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi, Professor Njuguna Ndung'u was not mean with details of where the shoe is pinching Kenya, lifting the lead on the issues crippling the economy and other critical sectors in the country. Among the areas highlighted by the former Treasury head is the education sector, which is funded by at least 34% of the national budget 2024-2025. From concerns raised by the Auditor General, so broken is the funding model that non-existent schools receive capitation and actual schools underfunded.
The current education funding model is not sustainable and has to be reformed after a very comprehensive auditing process.
Of the 187 schools sampled, JSS enrollment stood at 29,653. However, capitation only catered for 22,313 learners, leaving out at least 7,340 learners without funding. Ndung'u recommends a relook into the education model way down from the basic to university level to conform with economic realities.
There are some people who came up in other ministries giving us some figure of money we lose every year because of this capitation. There is a major issue. But if you want to get a glimpse of it, talk to the Auditor General.
Ndung'u is also of the opinion that the government should think again about its debt repayment policy, citing that the current revenue generated is not enough to service the national debt, highlighting this area for his successor to deeply look into.
Debt levels and debt burden cannot be sustained by the current revenues. Total revenues stand at about 16.5% of GDP, and the target for this 2024 was actually 18.6%, with a finance bill that is not there. So it means that those revenues may not be realized.
The former Treasury boss was also keen to note that Kenya's domestic borrowing strategy of Treasury bills and bonds is untenable, saying it's creating liquidity challenges with some state departments struggling to even sustain their salaries.
These liquidity constraints requires strategic options to avoid them creating a solvency challenge. This requires a very strong signaling approach.
The rot in form of budgeted corruption extends to ghost workers and pensioners. Professor Ndungu is calling for government urgency in eliminating the vice that has been siphoning the taxpayers by linking IFMI's and KRA's payee platform.
This has been resisted, I must tell you. The PS and I have been working on this. And we have been working with some of our staff. But it has been resisted. But it has to be done to clean up and eliminate ghost workers in public workers and even pensioners.
With some loopholes and suggested solutions already established, the incoming Cabinet Secretary John Mbadi takes up the ministry amidst sharp criticism of the government's tax policy and pressure on the cost of living. David Kagina, K24, Nairobi.
We shift gears now to matters security. Marsabit leaders have issued an urgent call for intervention by the Ministries of Interior and Defense to address escalating insecurity and lawlessness along the Kenya-Ethiopia border in Marsabit. This plea follows a deadly attack on Monday night which claimed 8 lives. Local leaders alleged that the assault was carried out by the Ethiopian militia. Ben Kirira has more.
At 11:40 p.m. on Monday, a lorry transporting foodstuffs from Nairobi to Dukana was ambushed and set ablaze at Forole. Of the 10 individuals on board, 8 were shot dead and their bodies were burned. 1 passenger was severely injured, while a minor managed to escape unharmed.
Ethiopian army, military or militias, they have no business to operate from the Kenyan soil.
It is now very clear this is a border issue. It's not an issue between or amongst the communities within our country.
The skirmishes along the border have led to significant displacement of people, further exacerbating the humanitarian situation in the region.
Tendo kama hiyo akiwa namna hiyo, kama hata sisi mnafanya vile wanafanya sisi, na kwa vita vibaya, vita kubwa.
Sisi tunataka NPRs tupatiwe kwa wingi along this border country kutoka Dukana mpaka Moyale.
Tumeweka patrol ya wanajeshi wetu na askari wetu na tunahakika security itapatikana.
Marsabit County leadership has raised concerns about the growing lawlessness in the area, which has led to numerous killings, abductions, and the destruction of property.
This kind of thing might even make other people have taking advantage and eliciting unnecessary conflict among our people.
Hii shida imekuja jana usiku isilete shida kati yetu kwa sababu hii mambo sio yetu, ni mambo ya kigeni.
In addition to the Monday night attack, 2 Korean missionaries were abducted and remain incommunicado.
Our missionaries wamefanya kazi ya kuhudumia wananchi wa hapo Marsabit. Haswa watoto maskini wengi wameelimishwa na hawa. Afya ya watu wameangalia.
Local leaders have appealed to President William Ruto to engage in dialogue with his Ethiopian counterpart to restore peace in the northeastern region. They also urged Marsabit residents to maintain peace and order during the current turbulent times.
Let us establish border crossing so that those who are crossing those borders at will must be checked.
In order to bring these attacks to a halt so that calm and normalcy is restored once and for all.
The bodies of the deceased have since been transported to the Marsabit mortuary for preservation and post-mortem examinations. Meanwhile, efforts to pursue the attackers are ongoing. Ben Kirira, K24, Nairobi.
Now, the Senate will hear the 3rd impeachment motion against Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza today afternoon. During the session, senators will hear the charges against Mwangaza, which include gross violation of the Constitution, gross violation of various county and national laws, and abuse of office. The hearing comes nearly a week after 49 out of 69 members of the Meru County Assembly voted to oust Mwangaza. Muriel Adhiambo filed this report.
The Senate will reconvene tomorrow to debate the impeachment motion against Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza. According to a Gazette notice published by Senate Speaker Amason Kingi today, the special sitting, scheduled for 2:30 p.m. on Wednesday, will hear the charges brought against Mwangaza in a motion tabled by Meru County Assembly Deputy Majority Leader Zipporah Kanyi. In the motion, supported by 49 members of the County Assembly of Meru, Mwangaza is accused of gross violation of the Constitution, gross violation of various national and county laws, and abuse of office. She is accused of violating the Constitution by illegally revoking the appointment of CPA Virginia Kawira Miriti as CEO of the Meru County Public Service Board without a vote of 75% of the County Assembly. She is also accused of illegally appointing the chairpersons of the Meru County Revenue Board, Meru Microfinance Corporation, Meru Youth Service Board, and Meru County Investment and Development Corporation Board without vetting and approval by the County Assembly. Refusing to implement a recommendation requiring the governor to dismiss the county secretary Kiambi Atheru Thambura and chief of staff Harrison Gatobu Mbithi for gross violation of the Constitution, and illegally dismissing the CEOs of the County Revenue Board, the Liquor Board, the Meru Microfinance Corporation, and Meru Water and Sewerage Services, resulting in a court judgment of 4 million shillings against the county government. Mwangaza is also alleged to have deliberately misled the public by claiming 86 million shillings had been raised following the murder of blogger Daniel Muthiani, alias Sniper, while only 286,516 shillings had been raised. This is according to an affidavit sworn by Muthiani's wife, Irene Kawira Kamenchu. The governor is also accused of abusing her office by making irregular payments of on-call allowances to 161 doctors, costing the county 74,340,000 shillings. Mwangaza is also said to have used a manual payroll to pay salaries and allowances amounting to 102 million shillings, employing an unnecessary workforce of 111 people in her office, raising the wage bill by more than 500 million shillings, which amounts to 49% of the county's revenue allocation, well beyond the 35% set by law. Mwangaza is also accused of paying Kiambi Christus Manyara, who is a public communication officer in the governor's office, his full salary and benefits while in remand after being accused of murdering Muthiani, contrary to the Public Service Commission Discipline Manual. 17 members of the County Assembly voted against the motion, while 3 abstained. The Senate overturned the first impeachment motion against Mwangaza in December 2022 after it found that the accusations against her had not been proven. Mwangaza also survived her second impeachment bid in November 2023 after the Senate acquitted her of the 7 charges brought against her. Under Section 33 of the County Governments Act, the Senate may appoint a special committee comprising of 11 members to investigate the charges against Mwangaza and tender a report within 10 days. If the charges are substantiated, Mwangaza will respond to the charges, after which the Senate will take a vote. If a majority of the senators uphold the charges, Mwangaza will cease to hold office. Muriel Adhiambo, K24 TV, Nairobi.
We're actually focusing on that story in the course of the day, and more details later on in a subsequent bulletins. And as promised, being on a Wednesday, today we focus on what next for the Gen Z. Was this a passing cloud? On Nane demos, most towns remained calm despite calls by the youthful Kenyans to come out and protest against what they term as a rogue government. Already, in studio, I'm joined by a very key guest, that is Honorable Marian Kitani. She is the Aldai Member of Parliament. Seated right in the middle is none other than Kasmuel Makori, revolutionary artist, and as well Kennedy Ondiek, a political analyst. We ask, what next for the Gen Z? Was this a passing cloud? Talk to us via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Chacha, as well on our SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. When we come back, we'll focus on what is on our dailies, and later on the program, touch on this topic of the day. Stay tuned for that conversation. We'll be right back. Right.